31 American soldiers just walked into a forest. None of them came back out. That sentence should be impossible. It is December 17, 1944. The Allied advance is unstoppable. Germany is losing. The war is nearly over. Everyone knows it. The 31 men of 2nd Platoon, K Company, 294th Infantry Regiment knew it too. They walked into the Ardennes forest that morning believing the hardest part of the war was behind them. Lieutenant James Calloway, 23 years old, Knoxville, Tennessee. Platoon leader, 1st Command, 48 hours on the job. His orders were simple. Advance through the Lachem Gap, secure the road junction at Au, link up with 1st Battalion by 1400 hours. The orders had one catastrophic flaw. Nobody told him that 200,000 German soldiers had been moving through that exact forest for the past 72 hours. How does a platoon of 31 men disappear? How does a trap get built so perfectly that no one sees it closing? The answer is waiting in the trees. And by the time Calloway understood what he was standing in, it was already too late to run. December 17, 1944, 0530 hours. The Ardennes Forest, eastern Belgium. The Ardennes was supposed to be a quiet sector. Allied command had designated it a rest and refit zone, a place to send worn-out divisions to recover, to fill out their rosters with replacements, to prepare for the push into Germany that everyone assumed was coming in the spring. The 394th Infantry Regiment had arrived 11 days earlier, green troops mostly, men who had trained for a year in Georgia and England and had never heard a German artillery round in their lives. 2nd Platoon was the greenest of all of them. 22 of the 31 men had been in Europe for less than 2 weeks, replacements shipped in from stateside to fill holes left by Hurtgen Forest. The survivors of Hurtgen looked at the replacements without expression and said nothing. That silence was a language the replacements had not yet learned to translate. The lieutenant. James Calloway had received his platoon 48 hours before the march. He was a 2nd lieutenant, the most dangerous rank in the United States Army statistically, the rank with the shortest life expectancy, the rank that placed a 23-year-old with 8 months of officer training between 30 men and everything the enemy could throw. He was not a coward. He was not incompetent. He had graduated near the top of his class at Fort Benning. He had never been shot at. He walked at the head of his column through the pre-dawn dark, map in his left hand, compass in his right, trying to match the contour lines on the paper to the terrain rising around him in the snow. The map showed a road, a junction, a tree line, familiar shapes. What the map did not show, what no map at any Allied headquarters showed, was what was moving on the other side of those trees. What was on the other side? Operation Watch on the Rhine, Hitler's final gamble, had launched at 0530 on December 16th. 3 German armies, 200,000 men, 600 tanks, moving west through the Ardennes in total radio silence, through the worst weather in European memory, through terrain that Allied command had declared impassable for armored formations. It was not impassable. It was simply brutal, and the men moving through it had been told by Hitler himself, by Himmler, by every officer in the chain of command, that this was the attack that would change the war. 200,000 Germans moving west, 31 Americans moving east, and 6 miles of frozen forest between them, closing like a jaw. Here is what 2nd Lieutenant Calloway knew on the morning of December 17th. He knew his orders: advance to Au, secure the junction, link with 1st Battalion. He knew his platoon, 31 names, faces he had been learning for 48 hours, most of them strangers to each other as well as to him. He knew the weather: overcast, heavy snow expected, temperature -14°C. Here is what he did not know. He did not know that contact with 1st Battalion had been lost at 2200 hours the previous night. He did not know that the regiment's communications section had been overwhelmed by the scale of simultaneous German attacks across a 140-kilometer front. He did not know that 2 other companies had already ceased to exist as fighting units in the 12 hours since the German offensive began. Most critically, he did not know that the Losheim Gap,
The exact terrain feature his platoon was walking into had been selected by German planners as the primary breakthrough corridor for the entire offensive. The Losheim Gap was the soft seam between two American divisions, a known vulnerability, a gap that had existed in the line since November. German intelligence had mapped it. German engineers had pre-positioned bridging equipment for the streams running through it. German infantry had rehearsed the advance routes. The trap was already built. Calloway was not walking toward a battle. He was walking into a mechanism that had been constructed over 72 hours with 200,000 moving parts specifically designed to destroy everything in its path. And the mechanism had already started. The German side, 05:45 hours. German positions. A stone farmhouse 400 meters north of the logging road. Feldwebel Hans Brenner of the 18th Volksgrenadier Division had been in position since midnight. He was 31 years old. He had fought in Poland, France, Russia, and Normandy. He had survived Stalingrad as part of a supply column and considered that the most important thing he had ever done. His orders were specific. Hold the road junction at Au until the 1st SS Panzer Division's advance elements came through. That could be 6 hours, it could be 12. He would hold either way. At 05:45, his forward observer reported movement on the logging road. American infantry, column formation, no armored support visible. Approximately 30 men. Brenner looked at his positions. 6 MG-42 machine guns, 2 81mm mortars, 67 infantry in prepared fighting holes along a 300-meter front. He felt nothing in particular about what was coming. He had seen this before. He would see it again. He told his men to wait for his signal. You already know this doesn't end cleanly. Subscribe. We find these stories every week.
06:10 hours, 2 kilometers into the forest. Calloway called a halt at a stream crossing. The bridge marked on his map, a timber crossing wide enough for a jeep, was gone. The timbers had been pulled and stacked on the far bank, deliberately, recently. This was the first thing that should have told him something was wrong. He stared at the stacked timbers for a moment. His platoon sergeant, Staff Sergeant Ray Dombrowski, 34, Pittsburgh, 12 years regular army, moved up beside him without being called. Lieutenant, I see it. Germans pulled this. Or civilians. Dombrowski said nothing to that. He was looking at the tree line across the stream. He had been in Hurtgen. He had learned to read tree lines. Staff Sergeant Ray Dombrowski entered the Hurtgen forest in November with a full rifle company of 197 men. He had come out 3 weeks later with 41. He had been transferred to the 394th as a cadre replacement, an experienced man to stiffen a green unit. He looked at the tree line across the stream and felt something in his chest that he had learned not to name, but had learned absolutely to obey. Lieutenant, I think we should send a patrol before we cross. Calloway checked his watch, 06:17. He was already 17 minutes behind schedule. Regiment had been clear about the timeline. Link up with 1st Battalion by 1400. Every minute of delay was a minute of exposure. He looked at the stream, 40 meters of open crossing, fast-running, ice-cold water, knee-deep at the ford. He looked at his map. The junction at Au was 4 kilometers ahead. We cross now. We'll lose an hour sending a patrol. Move the platoon to the crossing point. Dombrowski looked at the tree line one more time. He said nothing. He moved to comply. The first decision that kills men is never the dramatic one. It's always the quiet one, the one that looks like discipline. The tree line was wrong. Not in any obvious way. Not in a way that would appear in a field manual, but in the way that experienced infantry learn to see. The absence of birds, the particular stillness of snow-laden branches when there is no wind but the snow does not fall. When men are hiding in a tree line and have been there long enough to get cold, they move differently than trees. Not much, but differently. Dombrowski had seen it. He was not completely sure. He was sure enough. But he was a staff sergeant, and Calloway was a lieutenant, and the Army had 1,000 years of reasons why that distinction mattered. He moved the platoon to the crossing point. 06:31 hours. The first man reached the far bank. Private First Class Thomas Weaver, 19 years old, Akron, Ohio, in Europe for 17 days.
He pulled himself out of the water, clothes soaked from the chest down, and crouched at the bank's edge looking at the trees. Nothing moved. The second man crossed, the third, the fourth. Calloway went eighth, platoon leader's position, far enough back to observe, close enough to lead. The water was glacial. It hit him like a physical blow. He kept moving. What was happening in the tree line? Brenner watched them cross. He counted. 22 across, 23, 24. Dombrowski feels it. Dombrowski was the 27th man across. He stepped out of the water, onto the far bank, and felt it immediately. The silence was wrong. Not the absence of sound. That was normal in snow, in forest, in winter. This was a different silence. The silence of held breath. The silence of men who are not moving because they have been told to be very, very still. He opened his mouth to shout. 06:43 hours. Brenner raised his arm and dropped it. The forest opened up and swallowed them.
06:43 a.m. The ambush. The first burst from the left flank MG-42 hit 4 men in under 2 seconds. The sound, a tearing, continuous roar, unlike anything in any training exercise, hit the surviving 27 simultaneously. 5 men ran back toward the stream. 6 men hit the ground where they stood. 4 men ran forward into the trees, directly toward the German line. The rest did what the rest always do in the first 6 seconds of an ambush they were not prepared for. They froze. Calloway, the first 6 seconds. James Calloway hit the ground. This was correct. This was what Fort Benning had trained him to do. He was in the snow, face down, before his brain had fully processed what was happening. Pure motor memory. His brain caught up approximately 2 seconds later. Machine gun fire from the left, machine gun fire from the right, mortar rounds. He could hear the distinctive thump of tube launch, followed by the shriek of descent, coming from somewhere north. His platoon was in the kill zone of a prepared owl-shaped ambush. He had 14 seconds to make the correct decision before his platoon ceased to exist. What Fort Benning teaches. The doctrine for ambush response is precise. Immediate, violent assault into the ambush. Not retreat, not cover, not fire and maneuver. Assault. Directly at the source of fire. Maximum aggression, maximum speed. The logic is brutal and correct. The kill zone is the most dangerous place. The only way out of a kill zone is through whatever created it. Calloway knew this. What Fort Benning cannot teach, is what it feels like to give that order when the source of fire is 67 German infantry with 6 machine guns, and you have 27 men, 4 of them already down, in ankle-deep snow at -14 degrees Celsius. He gave the order anyway. Assault left, move, move, move. Dombrowski heard the order. He was already up. In his calculation, faster than thought, faster than language, the pure arithmetic of a man who had survived Hortgen. The left flank was the primary gun. The right gun was covering. The mortars would adjust. He grabbed the 2 nearest men by their web gear and physically pulled them to their feet. Up. Follow the lieutenant. Up. The men got up. This is the thing that never makes it into the history books. The specific miracle of men getting to their feet in a kill zone because one person near them refused to stay down. 06:44 hours. Brenner watched the Americans' assault left. He registered surprise, not panic. He had not felt panic since 1941, but genuine surprise. Green units did not typically assault into ambushes. Green units typically fragmented, ran for cover, died in place. These men were getting up and moving toward the primary gun. He adjusted his mortar fire. He repositioned the right flank gun to engage the assault. He did this calmly, professionally, without urgency. They were still going to die. They were just going to die doing something unexpected. Share this with someone who needs to hear these stories. Every share keeps this history alive. 06:45 hours. 12 seconds after first contact. Calloway is on his feet, running left into the fire. He counts the men moving with him. 9. He has 9 men running. The rest are down, dead, wounded, pinned.
19 seconds into contact. The left flank MG-42 is 30 meters ahead. He cannot see it through the trees, but he can see the muzzle flash, a continuous orange stutter through the birch. The gun is in a prepared position, log revetment, 2-man crew. They cannot depress the barrel far enough to hit men who get within 10 meters. 10 meters. He just has to cross 20 meters of open snow with 9 men, with the right flank gun now swinging to engage them. Thomas Weaver, 19 years old, Akron, Ohio, 17 days in Europe, is running. He is running because Dombrowski pulled him up, and Dombrowski is running, and the lieutenant is running, and that is the full extent of his decision-making in this moment. The man to his left goes down. Weaver does not look. The man to his right stumbles and keeps running. Weaver does not look. He looks at the muzzle flash in the trees. 15 meters. 0645 hours. 28 seconds into contact. 3 men are down in the open ground between the stream and the tree line. Calloway can see 2 of them still moving. 1 is not. He keeps running. The right flank gun swings. The German gunner on the right flank, Private Second Class Klaus Richter, 20 years old, Dresden, is tracking the assault. He has the 9 running Americans in his arc of fire. He needs 3 seconds to traverse and lock. He begins to traverse. Dombrowski sees it. Dombrowski sees the right flank gun beginning to swing. He calculates. He does not stop running toward the left gun. He shouts at the 2 men directly behind him. Right gun, suppress, now. Private Franklin O'Coffer, 21 years old, Chicago, drops to one knee in the snow. He has a Browning automatic rifle. He puts the first burst into the tree line where the right gun is located. He does not hit anyone. He hits a tree 6 inches from Klaus Richter's face. Richter flinches. Richter loses 1 second. 0645 hours. 28 seconds into contact. Calloway reaches the left gun. He comes around the right side of the log revetment with his rifle at his hip. The gunner sees him. The loader reaches for his sidearm. Calloway fires. The gunner goes down. Weaver comes around the left side of the revetment. The loader does not complete his draw. The left gun is silent. The problem with silencing one gun in a 6-gun ambush is that there are 5 more. Calloway is in the German tree line. He has 7 men with him. 2 are unaccounted for, gone somewhere in the snow behind him. He is 40 meters inside the German position, and he is surrounded on 3 sides. And the mortars have found the range. 0646 hours. The first mortar round lands in the stream crossing. The 5 men still on the far bank, pinned at the stream edge, take casualties. 2 killed. 1 wounded who can still move. 2 unharmed, but completely pinned under the bank overhang. Private First Class Elias Thorne, 20 years old, New Mexico, Navajo Nation, is the 2 unharmed men. He has the platoon's SCR 300 radio. He is the only radio operator still functional. He cannot transmit from under a bank overhang with 2 meters of frozen earth above him and mortar rounds adjusting on his position.
Calloway, deep in the position. Calloway does not know any of this. He is crouched behind the captured gun emplacement with 7 men, taking fire from 3 directions, trying to think. He has achieved the textbook objective: assault into the ambush, neutralize the primary gun. The textbook does not describe what comes next. Brenner adjusts his defensive line. He pulls his right flank infantry back to create an arc around the 7 Americans who have penetrated his position. He is going to close the arc. When the arc closes, the 7 men will be surrounded. 0648 hours, 5 minutes since first contact. Dombrowski crawls to Calloway's position. Lieutenant, they're moving to encircle us. How many? Can't count. At least 40 in the tree line, more behind. Where's the radio?
Thorn, he's back at the stream, pinned. A pause. Both men processing the arithmetic. 7 men, surrounded, no radio, no support. 37 meters of open ground between them and the stream. 2 functioning MG-42s covering that ground. We can't go back. We can't stay. What Calloway decides. There is a third option. It is not in the textbook. It is not the correct tactical decision by any measurable standard. It is the decision of a 23-year-old who has been in combat for 5 minutes and processed the arithmetic and found that the arithmetic leads only to one place. We go deeper. Dombrowski stares at him. Sir, if we go deeper into their position, they can't fire their own guns at us without hitting their own men. We move. We find their command element. We destroy it. Dombrowski processes this. It is tactically insane. It is also the only thing that might work. 7 men against 67, moving forward into the dark. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We find stories like this every single week. The Deep Fight, 0650 to 0731 hours. 7 figures moving through a birch forest at dawn, snow falling, German voices shouting ahead and to both flanks. The men move in pairs, covering each other, moving deeper into the enemy position. What happened in the 41 minutes between 0650 hours and 0731 hours was reconstructed later from German after-action reports, American survivor accounts, and the testimony of Feldwebel Brenner himself, who survived the war and spoke to American military historians in 1952. The sequence of events as best as it can be established. 0650 hours. Calloway leads 7 men northeast through the German position. The birch forest is dense enough at ground level to provide concealment, but not cover. The men move in a loose file, Calloway at the front, Dombrowski at the rear. They can hear German voices on 3 sides. The voices are louder to the west and south. The flanks are closing. The voices to the north are stationary. North is where Brenner has his command element. 0654 hours. They find the mortar position. 2 81mm tubes, 4-man crew for each tube, currently occupied with fire adjustment for the stream crossing. The mortar crews are not watching their backs. Calloway does not give an order. He looks at Dombrowski. Dombrowski nods. They go in together. The mortar crews are neutralized in 45 seconds. The tubes are spiked, barrel plugged with a grenade, fuse pulled, grenade left in place, rendering them inoperable. The mortar rounds stop falling on the stream. At the stream, Elias Thorne hears the mortar fire stop. He does not know why. He does not wait to find out. He pulls himself out from under the bank overhang. He extends the antenna on the SCR 300. He transmits on the regiment's command frequency. Any station, this is King 2, contact report, ambush at grid 887243, request immediate fire support and QRF, over. Static. He transmits again, more static. He changes frequency to the artillery net. He transmits again, this time a response. King 2, this is Red Leg 4, send your contact report, over. 0703. Thorne establishes artillery contact. He has no forward observer qualification. He has no artillery training beyond the basic infantry course. He has a grid reference, a compass, and a description of what he can see from his position at the stream bank. He gives all of it, everything he knows, every grid, every direction, every count. The artillery officer on the other end, Lieutenant Carmen Reyes, 196th Field Artillery Battalion, asks 3 clarifying questions and then goes quiet for 40 seconds. Thorne lies in the snow at the stream bank and counts the seconds. 0703. Inside the German position. Calloway has reached the farmhouse. It is a stone structure, pre-war Belgian farmhouse, approximately 12 by 8 meters. The windows are shuttered from the inside. Radio antenna on the roof. Brenner's command post. There are 5 men outside the building, 2 sentries at the door, 3 men at a field telephone position against the south wall. Calloway has 7 men. One of them, Private Dawson, was hit in the left arm somewhere in the last 5 minutes and is functional but losing blood. He has 6 effective men and 1 compromised man. He has the advantage of complete surprise. He has approximately 90 seconds before the flanking elements complete the encirclement and arrive at the farmhouse. The farmhouse, 0703 to 0706. What happens at the farmhouse is in the record. Calloway leads the assault himself. Both sentries go down in the first 4 seconds. The field telephone crew scatter. 2 run south and are lost to history. The 3rd raises his hands. Dombrowski kicks the farmhouse door. Brenner is inside with 4 men. his radio operator, his runner, and 2 infantry soldiers who had come in for warming. What Calloway sees when he enters: a stone room, a field table covered with maps, a German radio set, 4 men who are not yet reaching for their weapons because the speed of the assault has not yet registered as real. Brenner looks at Calloway. Calloway looks at Brenner. A fraction of a second that both men remembered for the rest of their lives. Brenner raises his hands. The 4 men in the room follow his lead. 0706. Calloway has 5 German prisoners and a command post. He has also, in the past 90 seconds, lost the element of surprise. The flanking elements of Brenner's company have heard the shooting at the farmhouse. They are moving. He has approximately 90 seconds before they arrive. What Calloway does with 90 seconds. He does 4 things. First, he has Dombrowski strip the maps from the field table. Everything on the table, overlays, orders, signal protocols, unit designations, goes into Dombrowski's field bag. Second, he has the radio operator shown to Weaver by gunpoint. Weaver, who has no radio training, is told to destroy the set. He does this efficiently with his rifle butt. Third, he tells the 5 prisoners through Dombrowski's limited German to lie face down and not move. Fourth, he picks up the stone farmhouse's field telephone, the one that connects Brenner's position to the rest of the 18th Volksgrenadier Division command network, and places it in the field bag with the maps. This is the decision that changes everything. He doesn't understand yet what he has. 0708. German infantry reach the farmhouse perimeter. Calloway has 7 men, 5 prisoners, 1 stone building, and no way out. He puts his men at the windows. He sends Weaver to the roof with the radio, the platoon's SCR-300, that Dombrowski had been carrying, and tells him to find Thorn's frequency. The Germans outside number approximately 40. They know there are Americans in the farmhouse. They know there are 5 German prisoners inside. This makes their tactical options complicated. Brenner, lying face down in the farmhouse floor, understands this too. He is in the most direct possible sense his own company's leverage. The hunter had become the hostage, and the trapped Americans had become something far more dangerous than a platoon.
0712. Weaver reaches Thorn on the radio. Thorn is still at the stream, still lying in the snow, still talking to Red Leg 4. Weaver's transmission breaks through. Thorn, this is Weaver. We're in the farmhouse, north end of the position. Lieutenant says we need fire on the German flanking elements, south of the farmhouse, approximately 80 meters. Can you relay? Thorn processes this. He has just spent 11 minutes establishing an artillery channel. He has grid coordinates. He has a fire mission partially built. Stand by. He goes back to Red Leg 4. He adjusts the fire mission. Target is now south of the farmhouse, not the stream crossing. German infantry, open ground, approximately 40 personnel. Lieutenant Reyes on the other end asks one question. Confirm friendlies clear of impact zone. Thorn does not know for certain. He knows Calloway said south of the farmhouse. He knows the farmhouse is north of where they're asking for fire. He makes the call. Confirmed, fire for effect. 0718. First artillery rounds impact south of the farmhouse. 105mm howitzers from the 196th Field Artillery Battalion. 6 guns, 12 rounds per gun, 72 rounds on a 100-meter grid square. The German flanking elements cease to exist as a tactical formation in approximately 90 seconds. Brenner, on the floor. Feldwebel Brenner listened to the artillery. He had been listening to artillery for 4 years. He understood exactly what he was hearing. His company was being destroyed. By artillery called in from inside his own command post. By Americans who had walked into his ambush and somehow ended up inside his headquarters. He would describe this moment to the American historian in 1952 as the single most complete tactical reversal I experienced in 6 years of war. 0731. The shooting stops. The farmhouse holds. The German flanking elements have been broken by artillery and have pulled back. The 2 remaining MG-42 positions have gone silent. Their crews, lacking command or clear targets, have withdrawn pending orders that will never come because the command post is occupied. Calloway stands in the doorway of the farmhouse. He counts his men. 7 men entered the German position. 5 came out of the farmhouse. Weaver is alive. Dombrowski is alive. O'Coffer is alive. Calloway is alive. Private Harold Marsh, 20 years old,
Denver, Colorado, who had been the man running to Calloway's left when they assaulted the left gun, is not. Stanley Kowalczyk, 22 years old, Buffalo, New York, who had been somewhere between the stream and the farmhouse, is not. The men at the stream. Of the 24 who did not enter the German position with Calloway, 7 were killed in the initial ambush and the mortar fire. 4 were wounded and had withdrawn to the stream bank. 13 were still functional. They had gone to ground, suppressed but unharmed, on both sides of the stream. Thorne had organized them in the last 45 minutes, pulling the wounded to covered positions, coordinating the radio contact that had ultimately broken the ambush. Of the 31 men who entered that forest, 9 were dead, 7 were wounded, 15 were functional. By the catastrophic mathematics of the Ardennes offensive, where entire battalions were destroyed in the first hours, 2nd Platoon's losses were survivable. What Calloway found in the field bag. When the 39th Infantry's intelligence section went through the maps and documents Dombrowski stripped from the field table, they found something that made a colonel stop speaking mid-sentence. Brenner's command post had been a forward coordination node of the 18th Volksgrenadier Division's advance element. The maps showed the exact planned routes of 6 German columns through the Losheim Gap, the timetable for the 1st SS Panzer Division's breakthrough, the planned location of Camp Group Piper's first fuel stop, information that, cross-referenced with aerial reconnaissance over the next 18 hours, would contribute to the decisions that eventually halted Piper's column at the Amblev River. A platoon-level ambush response produced corps-level intelligence. The intelligence section colonel reviewing Dombrowski's field bag contents at regiment headquarters reportedly said, "How did they get into the command post?" The answer when it came back from the survivors was, "The lieutenant said we couldn't go back, so we went forward." Sometimes the only way through a trap is to keep walking until you've walked out the other side.
James Calloway received the Silver Star. The citation described extraordinary courage and tactical initiative under fire. It did not mention the 48 hours of command experience, the missing bridge, the crossed stream, the decision to go deeper. Ray Dombrowski received the Bronze Star with Combat V. The citation described outstanding leadership under fire. It did not mention Hurtgen. It did not mention the 40 survivors from a company of 197. It did not mention what it costs a man to see a green platoon walk into something he recognized and find a way to keep them moving through it. Elias Thorne received the Bronze Star. The citation described coolness under fire and effective communications under hostile conditions. It did not mention that he had no forward observer training, that he had called in a fire mission based on information relayed through 2 radio hops and a broken antenna, that he had said confirmed when he was not completely certain and had been correct. Thomas Weaver received no decoration. He had done nothing the citation writers could find a category for, running across open ground because the men near him were running, destroying a radio with his rifle butt because someone pointed at it, getting from the stream to the farmhouse roof without being killed. He went home to Akron in September 1945. He worked at a tire plant for 34 years. He died in 1992. The 9 men died in the Ardennes forest on December 17, 1944, in the ambush at grid 887-243. Their names are in the record. 3 of them had been in Europe for less than 2 weeks. 1 had been in Europe for 11 days. 1 had celebrated his 19th birthday 4 days earlier. The Army sent telegrams to 9 addresses in 9 American states. 9 families read 9 sentences that contained the same information in slightly different words. It is the nature of these things that the telegrams arrived before the men who sent them home had time to know what had been recovered in that farmhouse, or what had been done with it, or what difference it made. It is the nature of these things that it would not have changed the telegram. The intelligence. The documents from Brenner's command post contributed to the Allied understanding of the German offensive's northern shoulder. They were part of a larger intelligence picture that was assembled over the first 72 hours of the Battle of the Bulge, a picture that was incomplete, partial, assembled under fire from fragments found in 100 different ways by 100 different people. Whether the documents from the farmhouse at grid 887-243 changed a specific decision on a specific day is not something any historian can state with certainty. They were part of what was known. What was known shaped what was decided.
What was decided ended the offensive. The chain runs from a 23-year-old lieutenant standing at a demolished bridge in the snow at 06:17 hours, deciding not to send a patrol, then deciding to cross anyway, then deciding to assault, then deciding to go deeper. The chain runs through all of them. Feldwebel Brenner. Hans Brenner was repatriated from American POW custody in September 1945. He returned to his family in Hanover. He worked as a mechanic. In 1952, he gave an extended interview to the U.S. Army Military History Program. He described the ambush with technical precision. He described the assault with professional respect. He was asked what he thought when Calloway walked into the farmhouse. "I thought, this is not how it was supposed to go." He was asked what he thought now. "I think that nothing ever goes the way it's supposed to go, and the ones who survive are the ones who understand that before the others do." He paused. The lieutenant understood it very fast. He went in as a platoon leader with 48 hours of experience. He came out with something that took most men a lifetime to learn. If this story stayed with you, hit the like button. Every like tells YouTube to show this to someone else who deserves to hear it. We find these stories every week, the ones history almost lost, the ones that don't make the textbooks but made the difference. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Don't miss the next one. Drop a comment. Tell us where you're watching from. Tell us if someone in your family was in the Ardennes. Tell us their name. Let us know they're remembered. These men walked into a death trap. The least we can do is remember that they walked out.